Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. How are you? Welcome to the Arts and Alliance Film Festival here in Palm Springs. Thanks to your gracious host, Alan Rohde. I am here to present some films this weekend. My name's Eddie Muller. Founder and president of the Film Noir Foundation and the host of Noir Alley on Turner Classic Movies. And it's good to see you all here this afternoon in a nice, cool movie theater. I am here to talk about my favorite actress of all time. Regardless of what Kirk Douglas says about her, she would be on the set. She was the ultimate professional in Hollywood, as everyone who ever worked with her, Kirk Douglas included, will attest. The movie that you are about to see, just a quick show of hands, how many folks have not seen this movie before? Okay, terrific. This is one of the lesser known films on Stanwyck's noir resume, if you want to call it that, which is kind of interesting because it is based on a novel by undoubtedly the writer who had more of his work adapted to film in this era than anyone else, Cornell Woolrich, who is the hardcore know who Cornell Woolrich is. He is like the all-time scribe of suspense in American letters. No one wrote more suspenseful novels and short stories than Cornell Woolrich, and quite a few of them were made into films. This one escaped a lot of people's attention over the years as an example, a sterling example of film noir, and part of the reason for that is because it is a Barbara Stanwyck picture. And a lot of the people who first started writing about film noir seemed to concentrate on it as a male-dominated genre. These were stories, in a nutshell, when I was growing up and I first got into this and I looked to books on film noir, most of them subscribed to the same theory. Film noir is about men who are destroyed by evil women. That was kind of the basic gist of it, right? And then there was this academic nonsense that went along with that said it was really men's reaction to women being in the workforce during World War II, and when the war was over, they felt emasculated, and so they made all these movies about evil women to get even. Like, these people have no idea how the movie business works, okay? So that is so not true. And there are almost just as many noir films with female protagonists as there are male protagonists. And that is certainly true of the work of Cornell Woolrich, where women were the protagonists just as often as men. This movie, No Man of Her Own, was based on a Woolrich novel written under his pen name, William Irish, called I Married a Dead Man. The movie has been, obviously, Barbara Stanwyck is not going to make a movie in 1949 called I Married a Dead Man. That would give the audience the wrong idea. So they repurposed the title from an older Paramount film called No Man of Her Own. And they made this picture. It's so fascinating because the two screenwriters, both women, Catherine Turney was a major player, largely at Warner Brothers, but she freelanced for this one. And she was an expert at adapting novels to film, but she rarely got her own credit on the movies at the end, because she would do the hard labor of figuring out how to structurally turn a 400 or 500 page novel into a 90-minute movie. But then a guy would come in to write the final script, and he would invariably get the screenplay credit, and it would be adaptation by Catherine Turney. But trust me, she did much more than that. The co-writer on this film is a woman named Sally Benson, who is famous because in the New Yorker magazine she wrote a series of essays about a young woman. It was called Junior Miss, and this became very popular, got adapted to the films, and Sally Benson is responsible for writing. It was really a memoir about her early life that became the movie Meet Me in St. Louis. Sally Benson wrote that. But this is not the last film you will see with Sally Benson's fingerprints on it in this festival, because the closing night film Shadow of a Doubt, also Sally Benson worked on that because Hitchcock wanted her to come in and make sure the part that Teresa Russell plays in that movie, which is a young adolescent woman, that it had the right feel and that the dialogue was right, and so Sally Benson was entrusted with the Teresa Wright character on Shadow of a Doubt. So those two women are responsible for the screenplay of this movie, and the director, Mitchell Eisen, is someone who is often overlooked in the catalog of great directors of this period. And I have a sneaking suspicion that's because two major filmmakers spoke disparagingly of Mitchell Eisen when he was in his prime. And that was Preston Sturges and Billy Wilder, both of whom had their screenplays adapted to film by Mitchell Eisen. And since these guys were both champing at the bit to direct movies themselves, they sort of discredited his films, which were terrific. If anybody has seen Remember the Night, which is another Stanley picture that Preston Sturges wrote and Mitchell Eisen directed, there is nothing wrong with the direction of that movie. But Billy Wilder very rudely said he's not a director, he's an interior decorator. Which was a bit of a slight at what everybody in Hollywood knew, is that Mitchell Eisen was gay. And he was one of what they called the Magnificent Seven. In retrospect, there were these 7 filmmakers in Hollywood that everybody knew these guys were gay, but it wasn't really spoken of. But Mitchell Eisen, he actually was an interior decorator. So I don't know if that's as much of a slight as Billy Wilder intended it to be. Because in addition to being a great director, Mitchell Eisen was known for owning a lot of apartment buildings in Hollywood, and stars would want to live in a building that Mitchell Eisen owned because he would do the interior decor for their homes. And so this made him a very, very popular man in Hollywood. And he does a magnificent job directing this movie. As I have said before many times, Barbara Stanwyck is the greatest actress in the history of the movie. And the reason I say that without any equivocation is because actors have one responsibility when they get a role. It is to make you believe it. That you have to believe in that character. When you are making a movie based on a story by Cornell Woolrich, the hardest thing is suspension of disbelief, because everything that Woolrich writes hinges on a preposterous turn of plot. Like a coincidence that is so far-fetched, you cannot believe it. This movie has one of those. And I'll be damned if Barbara Stanwyck doesn't make you believe every single minute of what is an utterly preposterous plot. But it works, not just because of her, but because of the casting throughout. Jane Cowell is an actress who was very popular on Broadway, who sort of came out of retirement to make this movie. She plays Stanwyck's mother-in-law. Phyllis Thaxter has a very small but crucial role in the film, and she is absolutely terrific. John Lund is the love interest. He made a lot of pictures with Mitchell Eisen. I think there was a little thing happening there, because Mitchell Eisen was famous for flirting with his leading men. And John Lund always said, I have no idea how I became an actor because I have an ugly face, the light doesn't hit me right, I walk funny, I have no idea why anybody would be interested in me at all. Well, Mitchell Eisen cast him like 5 times in movies, so something was happening. But the strongest character in the film is played by Lyle Becker. This, I believe, is his movie debut, and he is a rat. I was going to say something a little stronger, but he is just atrocious in this movie as the villain. And it's a very, very powerful film. It is one of my favorite adaptations of a Cornell Woolrich story for all the reasons that people don't think it's a film noir. Because the writers really concentrate on the character aspects of it. Mitchell Eisen's direction is less concerned with the plot and the tropes of film noir than he is with the humanity of these characters and what they're going through. And it's just a really, really beautifully realized film. So for those of you who have seen it, you know what I'm talking about. For those of you who have not, you are really in for a treat, because this is the greatest actress in the history of Hollywood. I'll say it one more time. The greatest actress in the history of Hollywood, giving one of her greatest, if lesser known, performances. Here is Barbara Stanwyck in No Man of Her Own.